All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Thank you, everyone. Wow. It's, please have a seat. No cell phones, sir. No cell phones. The recorded audience is not allowed to have any cell phones out. This is a Friday show. There have been a substantial number of developments overnight, and we will share them with you. And when I say we, I'm talking about the devoted staff we have. And even if they weren't being compensated, I know they would be here every day. Albert is one of them, and Kim as well. Kim tells me every night, I'm only doing this to pay for Julia's education.
It's not fake.
Yes, and that is the kind of dedication we look for from everyone. Yeah. But I am impressed that these devoted colleagues of mine have put together a really great show.
What?
And when I say really great show, I mean it's filled with information, it's filled with visuals, it's filled with explanations, it's filled with video, and we'll augment it with a second hour with two very smart people joining to react to a lot of what's going on in America. It's not just political violence. There's a lot more going in the U.S. right now, and you could say even that the political violence that has been wrought across the country this week is part of a bigger picture that we will discuss and get into discussions about with Michael Shure and Jim Avila in hour two. And then kind of to leave you with a soft landing on the week, the culture blaster, Michael Snyder, will be through in hour two to kind of tell us about movies and streaming and things that can serve as welcome distractions, as there's a lot going on that can, I think, get into our psyches and perhaps, make life even tougher than it already is. So we'll do that in hour two. Hour one will be dedicated to much of what we've seen just in the last day or so. With the murder of Charlie Kirk, there has been reaction, and even prior to finding a suspect, there was a ton of reaction and overreaction, and we'll get into all of that. So bear with us. I did want to start on a lighter, happier note. And so I wanted to point out that we went to a dinner the other night, and our friend, who is an amazing chef, and she's not officially a chef, that's not her profession, but she's just remarkable in what she's able to do. And she made this portobello mushroom risotto with the portobello mushroom seasoning from Coachella Valley Coffee. Look at that. The portobello mushrooms. We saw it on the counter and we said, oh my God, it's Coachella Valley.
Does she know the connection?
No.
Oh my God, that's funny.
So she uses this portobello mushroom seasoning from Coachella Valley Coffee. And if you're just joining us, Coachella Valley Coffee is a sponsor on our show. Mm-hmm. And they're famous for the best coffee on earth. I mean, just the best coffee you'll ever taste. It's a boutique roastery. Everything's hand roasted, and they have all these different beans that are organically grown. And then, as I say, everything's hand roasted. And they have amazing teas and spices and seasonings.
And we never talk about the spices at all.
Yeah, we seldom even mention them.
Because the coffee is so good and the tea is so good, and there's a few spices, but it's not like we ever highlight that. And
right.
Did you see what's in this salt, paprika, onion, garlic, and French roasted Coachella Valley coffee? Did the risotto taste like coffee?
No. The risotto was so delicious, and I took from her like a to-go bag of the risotto, and I dragged this is how good it was. I dragged the risotto out like in very distinct small portions over a 3-day period because I was it was so delicious. So we encourage you, if you even are already on the Coachella Valley Coffee site, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, to check out their seasoning, which, as I say, we just saw on the counter at our friend's home. And definitely there's a steak rub, there's the sea salt. Do use our discount code. So anything you order there, you can get a discount of 10% on. It is Mark T in the discount code offering there at checkout. Use it, Mark T at checkout, and you'll get 10% off. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Isn't that wild, though? Just really.
I hope you gave your friend the discount code. Were you like, next time?
I don't think I did. Unless they got it off of the. Well, you're right. This is a really good point you're making. I don't know. We didn't even mention the discount code. We were so taken with the season.
You need to message her back and let her know. I did that with my sister. She tried to serve me mango Coachella Valley tea, which I had told her about. And I said, you used the discount code, right? She goes, no, I didn't.
Man.
I'm like,
yeah. Oh. At least it'll save you money on shipping, that kind of thing. So yeah, use the discount code Mark T at checkout. And now this is pretty cool because this is an email that I got. Is this email in the rundown somewhere, or do I have to find it?
No, I didn't. You didn't send this one to me.
Oh my goodness, this is so terrific. Oh yeah, it's there though. If just right above the
Choco and Max.
Choco and Max are two cats that are apparently drawn to our sort of activist. It's peaceful activism. That's kind of what's the distinct quality of these t-shirts. And these different t-shirts featured on our website at getmarkmerch.com, they all encourage peaceful resistance, or they have some kind of proclamation that's really look, make love, not fascism, really associated with kind of peaceful resistance that we talk about. So born to peacefully resist. I'm wearing that shirt right now. I've got a few of them in case you're thinking, well, Mark, you wore that shirt yesterday too. It's a different shirt, okay? So don't, please. But I do, it's my favorite, that's why. And I also like this one because it's got the earth on it. Born to peacefully resist.
I like that color.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So clearly the cats like that color as well. And I'm kind of embarrassed that I don't have the email, because the email had the person who I'll find it for you just to mention it.
It's a cat hair Friday, says John Watson.
I'm loving it. I love it. Well, I'm a cat person.
Cats know what's cool. That's right.
Yeah. Oh, here it is. It's from Karen Kleiner, everybody. Karen Kleiner.
Karen. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are her cats, and she's got the new shirt, Born to Peacefully Resist. If you want to pick one up, it's at getmarkmerch.com. We don't make a lot of money on the merch side at all, but it's a great way to interact with the audience and for you to kind of wear, I think, a good message. You know, it is about peaceful resistance. It's about peaceful conversation, even heated conversation, but never violence, never. Anyway, the Born to Peacefully Resist t-shirts and the whole line, along with a lot of other merch stuff, in case you really want to rep the merch line, is at getmarkmerch.com. Bravo. Good stuff. Way to hustle that picture together. Thank you, guys.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, the bucket hat is Richard Delamater approved. Richard Delamater is quick to say, cats make the most important decisions for me, says her. By the way, put in some long sleeve t-shirts, Delette is saying. Well, I'll talk to Courtney, handles the merch stuff. She handles the design, and many of you have emailed. Our email is the Mark Thompson Show at gmail.com. And to the extent that you've been in touch with us about design, she's tried to respond. We have to do it all. We're really kind of a homegrown small business. So she tries to respond to your requests, some female t-shirt, some a ladies t-shirt as they're called, and then some, as you say, long sleeve tees. Maybe those are in the offing. So anyway. All right, can we get into what's happening?
The Mark Thompson Show.
This is it's a tragedy when political violence rears its head. It was a tragedy when political violence was rearing its head earlier this summer in Minnesota, when a legislator and her husband were gunned down in their own home. It was a tragedy when political violence reared its head with the uh, setting ablaze of Josh Shapiro's home, the Democratic governor in Pennsylvania. And it is a supreme tragedy when political violence again informs the rally that Charlie Kirk was having on the campus in Utah. It's completely unacceptable. It's murderous. It's awful. We've talked about it. It should be decried in every way. And the calls for vengeance, and I mean, these are just as bad. The scary part of anything like this is the ripple in the pond, right? That the effect of this act of political violence will only beget more political violence. In a way justified by the kind of ways in which vengeance is rationalized.
These far right online conspiracy theorists are taking it to a level that is very frightening. Some are calling for Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act. They say that Bannon says we are at war with each other. So what they're having to say, their reaction is extreme and frightening.
Bannon is always spoiling for a conflict. He uses the verbiage of battle a lot, and it doesn't surprise me that he is moving into this space very comfortably. I'll talk more about this, but obviously it's awful. The calls for vengeance, the ways in which we might see rallies and calls for violence celebrated in any way, those scare me. The country moves into a very scary place, and you've seen already that many politicians are now no longer going to have public events that had been scheduled. There have been, real effects even in the short term. We'll get to more of that as we continue, but I did want to update this story. Tony Ladotti says, this is not a war between right and left. It's between moderates and extremists. It's the responsibility of both sides to rein in their fanatics. Great comment. Thank you, Tony, for the $10 super chat. And I completely agree. I mean, obviously, political violence is an outgrowth of fanaticism. It stands to reason. Sadly, there are more radicalized people in America now than in a long time. Luis says with a $5 super chat, Charlie, you were right. People do have to die for us to have more guns than people in America. Thoughts and prayers and other cliches, but no gun control. The irony of this entire event, the tragic irony, and it is a tragedy. And these kids, 1 and 3, his young wife, and Kirk himself, a 31-year-old guy. You could say he may grow more moderate in his views, even as he has a big following. Even though he has a big following with what I would say are radical views, right? I mean, radical views about women, radical views about race, radical views about immigrants. I mean, Charlie Kirk was a hate monger in many ways. He could have moderated those positions. Now, maybe he would have become more radical. I don't know. But all I'm trying to say is having his, life snuffed out at 31, we'll never know. But the way in which now there is this call for vengeance is very much in keeping, I would say, in general, with right-wing radicalism. Right-wing radicalism far outpaces the radical left. You can scheme it out any way you want and tell me I'm wrong and it's equal on both sides. No, it's not. And the reason I say this is, look at earlier this summer. When they set Josh Shapiro's, the Democratic governor of Pennsylvania's home on fire, did you hear calls for vengeance? When they killed the Minnesota legislator and her husband in her home, Did you hear calls for vengeance? This is a different crowd. And so it's in that context that this act of political violence exists. We're going to talk more about this, I'm sure, in the days ahead, but I just wanted to, let's just be fair about the state of the state. Now, the verbiage that's coming is extraordinary. And prior, and I will get to, I'm going to try to take this in chronological order. So I'll get to the arrest of the perpetrator, and I'll get to who he was, and I'll get to it quickly. But I do want you to be aware of, because we are talking about a period of political violence and an atmosphere that is supercharged right now. And remember, it's supercharged by verbiage, by rhetoric. And so Randy says, Trump told reporters yesterday that we have radical left lunatics out there and we need to beat the hell out of them. So much for the president acting as a leader and being a calming voice now. Yeah, exactly. By the way, I'm not going to be able to continue to speak extemporaneously and try to stay on a schedule with things that I want to get to, because this show is not scripted. If I have to read and acknowledge every comment, so you feel free to, and in fact, I appreciate you putting comments up there, but I want to explain kind of why it's going to seem like I'm ignoring some of them, because I'm getting to something, and every time somebody says something and I've got to react to it, it takes me off the track. So of course it's true. And that comment is very much on the theme that I do want to get to, which is the rhetoric is supercharged. So even before the arrest, even before we knew anything, Trump was talking about the lunatic left. And not just Donald Trump, but his son. I saw this on Sean Hannity. Again, this is now before there had been any sort of ID of who this guy was. The Eric Trump appearance on Sean Hannity's show was all about how the Democrats have created this environment, and the persecution of my family, the Trump family, is how we got here. Go ahead, Albert.
America Great Again movement, and he put his heart and soul and every aspect of his effort into it. And then to see the blood gushing out of his neck today, the truly traumatizing sight, when all you saw in that crowded audience was just love. I mean, kids who were engaged in the political process, who finally wanted to get involved with politics for the first time maybe ever, right? I mean, something that 10 years ago was so dull until my father reinvigorated it. And now you had the next generation, a kid who is 31 years old, who was out there giving it absolutely everything and electrifying these kids, and today he's gone. And it's just, it's hard to fathom. We've seen enough death. We've seen enough senseless killings. And Sean, let me leave it with this. I'm sick and tired of seeing the bullets. They're only going one way. Again, first it was my father. Then you saw what they tried to do to Kavanaugh. Then you saw what they did to Steve Scalise. Now they just killed Charlie Kirk. I've gotten more envelopes of white powder, as has Don, as has everybody in our entire family. When does the senseless nonsense stop? And when is there accountability from MSNBC and NBC and everybody else who just fosters this hate every single day, including today, right after that incredible man right there was killed? It's enough.
I've had the same experience. I don't talk about it publicly. There's a lot we go through. I spent about an hour on the phone with you and Laura the other night, and you were describing a chapter that you're writing in a book that's coming out. And we talked at length about all that you, your brothers, your sister, your entire family, Melania, your father, more than anybody, has gone through. And really unprecedented rage and hatred. And it's almost like, I wonder if we become numb to the words and what impact all those words, dehumanizing your father, has had, and dehumanizing people in the movement. Words matter. I mean,
words matter. Stop here for a second, Albert. I will return to this. Again, this is a cut before they'd made the arrest, before they made the ID. I'll get back to that cut. But what a cherry-picked history, even just recent history, Sean Hannity has. You're telling me that it's unprecedented, the kind of criticism of Donald Trump the othering of the Trump family. What happened to the Obama family when they were in the White House? They were eviscerated by the right. They were pulled apart in ways that were horrible. I'm just talking about the rhetoric associated with Barack Obama and his presidency. So don't tell me about everything happening under the Trump presidency and the criticism of the Trump family. Obama and his family were positively pulled apart by the right, by Fox News Channel and others like it. Continue, Albert.
Had been assassinated. We knew he was shot. And, over at MSDNC, they're blaming the victim. Pritzker is blaming your father. But this has been 10 years. You're chronicling all of this. Most people don't know the backstory of all that you had to live through and your family has had to live through. It's never happened in history before, Eric. And I don't know if there's anybody we can appeal to. I don't hear anybody on the left, maybe with the exception of John Fetterman, that, wants it to go away.
Yeah. Well, that's right, Sean. I wrote a book about this. I released it 2 days ago. It's called Under Siege. It is exactly what we're dealing with right here. And I said in it, they tried to impeach my father multiple times. They went after our kids. They tried to break up our family. They tried to bankrupt us. They try and put us, our company out of business. They subpoenaed the hell out of all of us. They pulled him off the ballot of Maine and Colorado. They gag ordered him. They took his free speech away from him. They did so much more. And then they tried to shoot him. They tried to shoot him twice, right? And I said this on your show. I said this before Butler, Pennsylvania. I said they've tried everything. And this is what Under Siege is all about. This is what the book is all about. They tried to do everything.
Now he gets into the book. But what I'm trying to give you in that cut is a sense of what the right is saying and what they're doing and the rhetoric that's out there. And, obviously, when you look back at the history of Trump and the Trump organization, they ran a fraudulent charity. They were literally barred from running a charity in New York. You can say that was some kind of, jihad against them, but that's the real judgment of a court. Also, the settlement of Trump University for $25 million as a fraudulent university. This is a family, and you talk about they're after our businesses. They're after your businesses because your businesses are committing fraud at every turn. And even as you ascend to the presidency, you and the Trump family have looked to enrich yourselves in every way possible. The meme coins, the setting up of the platform for crypto trading, all of this. So don't tell me that these attacks on your family are baseless. Quite the contrary. I think the family's done quite well. You've made, by estimates that we know about, and these are in published reports from the New York Times and elsewhere, anywhere from $4.5 to $5.5 billion off the presidency. So we're not even through the first year. So that's the criticism of the Trump family. But you can see how this rhetoric can whip up the kind of resentment. And I'm sure if I felt attacked by, and I felt my family attacked, this is the kind of defense I would put up. But it's because of the linkage to political violence that this rhetoric becomes so dangerous. Now, Trump also commenting on this, jumping on the radical left. Give me that, Albert, and then I'll get to Trump's announcement on, this was him just commenting on, and I want you to pay specific attention here to the fact that Fox, it seems in this moment anyway, is this that Ainsley, whatever, is she the one on the couch there with, anyway, they're trying to say, hey, there are radicals on both sides, right? And Trump says, not really. No, the radicals are on the left. Here we go.
What do we do about our country with that? Because we have radicals on the right as well. We have radicals on the left. People are watching all of these videos and cheering. Some people are cheering that Charlie was killed. How do we fix this country? How do we come back together?
I'll tell you something that's going to get me in trouble, but I couldn't care less. The radicals on the right oftentimes are radical because they don't want to see crime. They don't want to see crime.
Worried about the border.
They're saying, we don't want these people coming in. We don't want you burning our shopping centers. We don't want you shooting our people in the middle of the street. The radicals on the left are the problem. And they're vicious and they're horrible and they're politically savvy. Although they want men and women sports, they want transgender for everyone. They want open borders. The worst thing that happened to this country, because I've already solved inflation, costs are down. Look at energy costs. You're going to have $2 gasoline pretty soon. I've solved just about every problem. The worst thing that happened to our country is when we let 25 million people in, many of which, and I say 80%, should not be in our country. They emptied their prisons into our country. They emptied their mental institutions, insane asylums. You don't know what that is. That's seriously, you know what that is? A mental institution on steroids, okay? They emptied out insane asylums, crazy people into our country by the millions. And it's it's the hardest thing. We have a border now that's totally secure. Nobody came in.
So this is this morning. I want to remind you, this is on the heels of the apprehension of the guy who murdered Charlie Kirk, and Trump segues in this television appearance to attacks on immigration, peacocking about the economy, which of course it's all a concocted mess of facts, right? He's completely, the economy is not trending in a good direction at all, and talking about the border, et cetera, and slamming the radical left, as he puts it. So
he actually said the radical right, they're just mad about crime, as if that's, so he makes excuses for the radical right, but the radical left, boy, those are the people we need to really go after.
And this rhetoric is one-dimensional on some level, but it's landing with so many people. And so it's radicalized many on the right. And the assassination of Kirk, this is and I'm sure there are those who don't want, it is an assassination. It's a political assassination. It may energize a lot of those who are already radicalized. What happened with the apprehension of this guy is interesting also as it relates to Trump, because there's a theater and performative aspect to this presidency and this man, Donald Trump, which doesn't reflect a humanity. It reflects again, an adherence to the theater of the presidency, the messaging associated with the presidency. And so it was that they apprehended Charlie Kirk's murderer, and we'll tell you more about that in a moment. But Kash Patel, who had already screwed up this investigation in so many ways, the FBI, they're now peacocking about it. But the reality is, Kash Patel and the FBI, now populated with a bunch of loyalists, they got rid of the FBI station chief or regional head there in Utah. Why? Because she was a DEI hire. You don't get to run an entire region for the FBI because you're some DEI hire. It's really a offensive notion. But in any case, Patel made a mess of this. I mean, he announced that they had a suspect when they didn't. They'd apprehended somebody and they hadn't. Then he had to walk that back. Then he announced through his FBI preliminary investigations that there were a bunch of etchings on the bullet casings. Turns out there weren't. Turns out a lot of this stuff was in a preliminary stage of an investigation where they're just kind of throwing stuff out that they found at the scene. So Patel has been a mess. So finally, Patel gets to announce that they've apprehended the Charlie Kirk murderer. They didn't, by any virtue of their investigation, apprehend anybody. What happened with the Charlie Kirk murderer? His family blew the whistle on him. His family said, you have to turn yourself in. He'd gone back to his family. And then a clergyman who they reached out to, they together approach law enforcement. And that's how this revelation was made as to who it was and then ultimately his apprehension. That's what happened. So they can peacock all they want, and you'll see it in a second. Everybody thanking each other. Oh my God, the fine work done. The fine work done by who? By the kid's dad who called the cops? By the clergyman who called the cops? Thank them. All you needed was a phone line. I resent the performative, theatrical nature of this stuff because it lacks any kind of tethering to reality. Albert, run this package. I don't love this package, but is that what's up next in the gate? This is sort of the, what do you have next? This is the announcement, and you'll get a little bit of what I'm talking about. And this is kind of a wrap on what happened. And then I'll tell you a little bit about the family. Go ahead.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We got him.
A suspect is in custody in the shooting death of Charlie Kirk. Tyler Robinson, a 22-year-old Southern Utah man, reportedly confessed to the shooting to his father. A minister friend of the family urged Tyler to turn himself in to authorities.
I think with a high degree of certainty, we have him in custody.
President Trump broke the news that authorities had a suspect in custody during a live interview with Fox and Friends. Conservative activist Kirk was fatally struck in the neck with a bullet on Wednesday while speaking at an event at Utah Valley University. On Thursday, Kirk's body was flown home to Phoenix, Arizona on Air Force Two, accompanied by Vice President Vance. President Trump is calling for the death penalty in the case. The death penalty is legal in Utah. This is Inside.
So that's kind of a summary of where we are now. So they apprehended the suspect. And again, it was because the family reached out to law enforcement to tell them who this guy was and that he was indeed in their family. But I think this again speaks to the lack of seriousness on the part of this man, Donald Trump, and his administration. And he's populated with all these guys who are just one-dimensional incompetents like Kash Patel. Patel, they made the apprehension at 11 o'clock last night. He kept the lid on it because he wanted Donald Trump, or Trump wanted, to make the announcement. I mean, I don't know if Patel wanted Trump to make the announcement. Patel is all lavishing praise all the time on Trump. So maybe he said, Mr. President, I want you to make the announcement tomorrow on Fox and Friends.
Weird.
So he sits on this information all night. And then Donald Trump goes on this Fox and Friends show and he makes the announcement there. I mean, it's lunacy. But that's what happened. That's where we are. We have a TV president. But were he only a TV president, it would be fine if he were just reading things off the prompter. His decision-making and his reflexive movements have tremendous effects on this country and on the world. So back to this guy. 22-year-old guy. Trump breaks this news. The suspect's name is Tyler Robinson. He was not a UVU student. Lived in southwest Utah, about 250 miles from the site of the shooting. He was charged with state felony offenses, aggravated murder. That carries the possibility of the death penalty. Obstruction of justice, discharging a weapon, all of that stuff. So Trump said, essentially, somebody very close to him turned him in. Those were Trump's words on that Fox show. In fact, Albert, you have a little bit more of Trump describing, I think, the actions of cops and authorities. And here's a little bit more of that. And then I'll tell you more about the family as well, because there's all this stuff about, you know, is it a radicalized family? Are they radicalized left? Are they? And of course, you know, all of these different narratives that have been folded onto the scene are utterly without any kind of underpinning of logic. Go ahead.
Any updates on the suspect?
Yeah. Can I always say, I think, just to protect us all, and so Fox doesn't get sued and we all don't get sued and everything else. But I think with a high degree of certainty, we have him in custody, right? In custody. Everyone did a great job. We worked with the local police, the governor. Everybody did a great job. You know, getting somebody that you start off with absolutely nothing. And we started off with a clip that made him look like an ant that was almost useless. We just saw there was somebody up there. And so much work has been done over the last 2.5 days. You know, it's amazing, actually, when you start off with that and then all of a sudden you get lucky or talent or whatever it is. But yeah, I think we're in great shape.
Mr.
And
President,
he's in custody.
your suspicion was that he was radical left, and now you have more information. What can you share with us about his ideology?
Yeah, Lawrence, let me just, and by the way, Lawrence is doing a good job. What's going on?
Job. Yeah,
I'll tell you what, I'm very proud of you.
Thank you,
I said you were going to do well. But yeah, I think that I don't want to go too far. I'd like to tell you some stories that how it happened, but essentially somebody that was very close to him turned him in. And that happens when you had some of those good shots. Somebody is going to say, whether it's a parent or whatever, I'd rather not say right now. They're going to announce it today, sometime later, probably talk about that. But somebody close to him turned him, you know, they said, whoa, it's interesting. Where we had very good pictures, but not great, not perfect. And when you look at it, what happened is somebody, and this happens a lot. It happened with the crazy Boston bomber. It happened with others. Somebody that's close recognizes even a little tilt of the head, which nobody else would do. And somebody that was very close to him said, that's him. And essentially went to the father, went to a U.S. Marshal, who was fantastic, by the way. And the person was involved with law enforcement, but was a person of faith, a minister. And brought him to a U.S. Marshal, who was fantastic. And the father convinced the son, this is it. And again, I'm always subject to be corrected, but you know, I'm just giving you, based on what I'm hearing, they'll give you a much more active. I just heard about it 5 minutes before I walked in. As I'm walking in, they said, looking real good. They have the person that they wanted. So you have breaking news, don't you?
We know that's not true because they made the arrest at 11 o'clock last night, didn't they, Kim? I thought they made the arrest overnight.
It was late last night, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you don't tell me that you just found out about it 5 minutes ago. Again, I'm not trying to bust Trump on everything, guys. I in fact, you know, I sometimes turn myself into a pretzel trying to justify or understand or figure, might this work better? But I mean, you know, once again, it's just crazy that he withheld this information so he could appear on this morning show and speak to his audience and break this news of the apprehension. There's a lot of theater here. Yes, the clergyman reached out to U.S. Marshal, and that's how the whole thing happened. But it wasn't some triumph of FBI investigation or any other sort of investigation on the part of the federal government. A family member of Robinson's told investigators that the 22-year-old had become, quote, more political in recent years. This is coming from the governor of Utah. He described a recent dinner conversation between Robinson and one of his family members that was relayed to investigators, wherein Robinson apparently mentioned that Kirk was coming to UVU. They talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints that he had. The family member also said that Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. Investigators found that Robinson drives a gray Dodge Challenger similar to the one believed to be used by the shooter on Wednesday. The vehicle was spotted arriving on campus around 8 in the morning. His appearance of being radicalized, it's sort of hard to find. He was brought up in what appears to be a typical suburb of in Utah. He was awarded a scholarship to Utah State University, only attended for one semester in 2021. A neighbor said that he was smart, quiet, and never caused any problems. I mean, that sounds so familiar when you ever hear about these people. Authorities confirmed that writing had been found on bullet casings related to the attack that suggests the shooter was deeply entrenched in internet culture. The single fired casing appeared to be inscribed with a reference to a meme involving furries, an online role-playing community. That in itself is sort of bizarre, right?
Weird, yeah.
Yeah.
Democratic activists are saying, listen, this is a guy who is, he's not a Democrat. He's not transgender. He's not an immigrant. He is a 22-year-old white guy from a Republican family in Utah who loves guns and wore a Donald Trump costume on Halloween. So, they're going to try to paint him as some kind of ultra liberal activist, and that might not really be the background from which he hails.
Another unfired casing was found to read, "Hey, fascist, catch." It also had a series of commands corresponding to a video game. And, oh, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, Bella Ciao, 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 read another unfired casing appearing to reference an anti-fascist song. And the last simply read, "If you read this, you are gay, LMAO." I mean, Kirk's jihad against the gay community and trans community, well known, but I mean, it's lost in all the rest of the jihads. I mean, against the immigrants, against women's freedoms. He had a very strong, old school, to be kind, religious notion about where women should be in the family structure. And it's not out in the workplace, and it's not making any decisions. It's in an obedient role to their husband. Authorities said that a friend of Robinson showed them a series of Discord messages between the two, appearing to reference the logistics of the shooting, including retrieving a rifle from a drop point, leaving a rifle wrapped in a towel behind, and then changing outfits. FBI agents had recovered what they believed to be the weapon used in the shooting. That was on Wednesday. They called it a high-powered bolt-action rifle. They recovered it from a wooded area that was nearby. Trump, of course, you just heard it, praised all of this, said we started off with this clip that made him look like an ant, but, it's incredible, the investigation. I mean, again, the posting of the picture, that was key. But after that, it was a call from the family. Utah Department of Public Safety detained 2 other individuals it named as suspects in the immediate aftermath, but neither one of them was involved. Kash Patel fed into the chaos, of course, announcing on social media that agents had caught the shooter on Wednesday afternoon. Then he was forced to walk back that claim soon after that first claim was made on social media. "To my friend Charlie Kirk," Patel said, "Rest now, brother. We have the watch, and I'll see you at Valhalla." I mean, again, Kirk was a strong...
Are we Vikings?
Christian. Valhalla is the afterlife in Norse mythology, but yeah, in this case, it's applied here. So with the video footage, they said they had an idea that this was likely someone of college age who blended in well with the institution. Those are the words of law enforcement and the Utah police commissioner. And then the footage shows that Robinson arrived on campus at 11:52 in the morning. He ascended several stairwells to the rooftop location where the shot was fired. That was the clip that was released. You saw him running across the roof and then down into the parking lot. And the FBI Salt Lake City office had also released photos of a person of interest in the shooting that appeared to have been taken from surveillance video. That was the black hat, the dark glasses, black long-sleeve shirt, and a design bearing an American flag in the center. And, this is a period, I think, that could very much be informed by this event and events like it. And as I say, many political rallies and even meetings with communities that make up constituencies or representatives across Washington and also in state capitals and in other, frankly, just communities nationwide. They're canceling or postponing a lot of these events because they're worried about the threat of this kind of political violence, now a sort of copycat violence being perpetrated.
A couple more details about the shooter from Newsweek magazine, and I hadn't seen this before. They say he is a third-year student in Dixie Technical College's electrical apprenticeship program. So while he did get a full ride to a university in Utah, he ended up going to tech school. His parents Amber Robinson and Matt Robinson. Matt was a 27-year veteran of the Washington County Sheriff's Department and a registered Republican. So his dad, longtime in law enforcement, comes from a conservative background.
So it doesn't really fit, does it? It doesn't really fit the narrative that was jumped on immediately by Trump, by Bannon, by Hannity, by any of them. So, I mean, you can build whatever narrative you want. Obviously, we see evidence of that regularly, but it doesn't fit the narrative that we were hearing about. I do think what you're seeing is the ineptitude of the FBI under Kash Patel, the ridiculousness of firing competent FBI professionals and replacing them with loyalists who don't know what they're doing. Kash Patel can't find his butt with both hands. And he is the guy who is running the FBI. They have 1,000 agents over on the Epstein files looking for Trump's name, trying to dry clean all of those. They're trying to tee up political prosecutions of one sort or another. This is a crew that has lost their way on real law enforcement. But when it comes to political recriminations and the kind of political jihad that we see is now increasingly defining this administration, that's what they do. But back to this shooter, it's reprehensible in the extreme. It's unacceptable. And for those cheering it, I would say, maybe you just don't get it. It's wrong in every way, and it will beget a bunch of other copycat creations that create a political environment that's already, just in the less than a day since they've apprehended this guy, an environment that's supercharged with violence and the threat of violence. And of course, it doesn't help that there are calls for violence, and you call them the lunatic left, and you call them, I mean, the lunatic left, I keep hearing it. And you can say, well, Mark, it's just a thing that they've done that for, yeah, but what I'm seeing from the right, as manifested by the Bannons, Hannitys, Laura Ingrams of the world, is a complete othering of the left. You just don't hear that kind of rhetoric in general from the left. You know, look, I'm no particular fan of MSNBC, and particularly after they dumped that Matthew Dowd because of what he said. He said, you know, violent thoughts lead to violent words, and violent words lead to violent actions. Wasn't it something along those lines?
Yeah,
And
you got it. Yeah,
that seems like self-evident. That's such a tepid thing to say in a moment like this, and you fire the guy? Makes no sense. But
he's not the only one fired. There have been teachers fired and firefighters fired. They fired somebody they were going to put a DC comic book out, the writer of the comic book, and now they've taken the comic book away. If you say anything negative about Charlie Kirk at all, you must be part of the radical left. You can say you're sad about what's happening in America with the stoking of the political violence. You can say that. You can't say, you know, oh, I won't miss Charlie Kirk's voice. If you say that, then, you know, oh, you must be the problem.
it's its own sort of censorship that's being brought down on the American discourse. And that's a problem as well.
And there's the irony that Charlie Kirk was shot perhaps because of the things that he was saying, the ugliness, not the violence, but the ugliness of his message, right? And that he should be allowed to have these opinions without fear of violence. That's true. But then he gets shot, and we immediately try to censor free speech in this country. So you're either for free speech or you're not.
There is a talk of a law to be passed that would suggest that you can prosecute anyone who says anything that is disparaging about Charlie Kirk. I mean, imagine that. I mean, but this is sort of like the rush to hatch any kind of attention-getting, social media-grabbing moment from all of this. That's happening on the right. But it's a very dangerous time. And I think it, also I would just say this, and I hate to keep coming back to Patel, but Patel is such a mess. And by the way, MAGA knows he's a mess. MAGA's angry at him for the Epstein files. I mean, here is Kash Patel, who had a podcast. That's what Kash Patel was doing before he was made FBI director. He's a podcaster. And that's not to take away some of his skills as a lawyer. He has a legal degree, etc. But he shouldn't be running the FBI. Oh my God. And you're seeing that he shouldn't run the FBI every hour of the day. But MAGA's hip to him because his cover-up of the Jeffrey Epstein files is something that they don't countenance. We see the ridiculousness with which he's handled this investigation. Him going on, prematurely declaring that the shooter had been captured, then he has to back that down. I mean, he's just a blundering moron. And then the one thing that he does better than anything else is lavish Donald Trump with praise. Thank you for letting law enforcement do its job, Mr. President. That's the first thing he said at his press conference.
This is just cops being cops.
Yeah. And so, it's that. Everybody is writing those checks. Mr. President, you're so smart. Thank you for letting us do our job. Anyway, the Patel mess is just so reflective of this moment in American history where we have incompetence in government and they are all there just to lavish the president with praise. And that's all the president cares about because he's on a performative ride himself.
Did you hear they want to put a statue of Charlie Kirk in the Capitol? In addition to giving him the Presidential Medal of whatnot, they want to create a statue and put it in the Capitol.
Yeah, the presidential.
It's never been anything like this.
Presidential Medal of Freedom wasn't enough.
Yeah.
We're going to do that. Will you put that alongside the statue of the J6ers who you pardoned? I mean, if you want to go look at a moment that plants the flag at the summit of political violence, you can go back to January 6th. That was a politically charged, violent protest that was fomented and encouraged in every way by this president. And then, after arrests were made and prosecutions pursued, and convictions sought and reached, you had a president go in and literally pardon everybody. Pardon them in a way that took no stock of how heinous what they did was doing, what they did, taking no stock of what they did, I guess this might be the way to say it, meaning, you're looking at people who are literally trying to kill police officers. They were trying to enter the Capitol in a violent way, and they all were pardoned. I mean, that moment that pardon happened, that unleashed a group of people back into this country's everyday life who are bent on the kind of violence that's associated with politics that is adjacent to or very much a part of what we saw with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Sorry, I get it. Not everybody there was as violent, but many people who were pardoned were every bit as violent. Mm-hmm. You're trying to beat to death a police officer. That's what was going on January 6th. Not just one, many. So I don't see how you look at the facts here and not see that the right has created an environment that is just ripe for this kind of activity.
I don't think many people have forgotten that Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, as it was Michigan,
Mhm.
who they went after her, tried to kidnap her, had horrible plans for her. Paul Pelosi in his home in San Francisco gets nailed with a hammer to the head, and the
And they were looking for
president,
Nancy Pelosi. I mean,
yeah, they
the
were.
perpetrator was looking for Nancy Pelosi, and
And
there
the
were jokes made about that afterward.
and
There
the
were tons
president
of
was
jokes.
making jokes. The president, Trump, made jokes about it as if it's somehow funny.
The
Yeah.
editor-in-chief of Midas Touch, Ron Filipowski, writing on X in a public social media post, so after days of Republicans blaming and vilifying Democrats and trans people for Kirk's murder, despite having no clue who the person was, we find out it's a white guy from a Republican family in Utah who loved guns. Try to square that circle.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk more about it with Avila and Shure.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I also wanted to mention there's some, I mean, again, this isn't the only thing happening, but obviously it's dominating the discourse as it should. I mean, I think it's going to inform a lot of the future. But I think there was Kim was telling me that there's a pretty major decision on Planned Parenthood that went down also. It's kind of, everything else that's happening right now is sort of being orphaned by the media cycle, which is obsessed with this Charlie Kirk story, and I understand why. But Kim, bring us up to speed on that, because I think that's pretty significant.
Yeah, this is a story about the First Circuit Court of Appeals that ruled that the Trump administration can enforce this provision in the reconciliation bill passed in July that would allow them to block Planned Parenthood from receiving Medicaid funds from the government because the organization offers abortion care services. So Trump is being allowed to now withhold Medicaid payments from Planned Parenthood, which means more than 1 million patients currently using Medicaid will no longer be covered for basic reproductive health care, STI testing, cancer screenings at these Planned Parenthood clinics that are across the country. So basically, in a nutshell, a court just gave Trump permission to defund Planned Parenthood.
So this is about 200 healthcare centers.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about Planned Parenthood is the abortion part of Planned Parenthood really isn't a big part of it.
It's a part of it, but it's not the only thing they do.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm talking about cancers and the other illnesses that have to do with the reproductive process.
Absolutely.
They'll go undiagnosed and untreated.
And it comes off after news that came yesterday about $10 million worth of contraceptives being destroyed on orders from Trump officials. So it's very clear what they want to happen to women, especially poor women on Medicaid. They want them pregnant. They want them having babies. They don't want any chance of financial success. And it's just another way to keep the ladies down.
The realities of the agenda that this administration has pursued are pretty grim, and they're, pursuing them with a certain ease through the courts. And with this concierge Supreme Court in place, we'll see. But it would, I would say, be likely that they'll get a lot of their agenda through, Donald Trump saying that he'll send the National Guard to Memphis, Tennessee.
That's the next city.
He's going to send the National Guard to Memphis to address anybody? Crime is the answer we were looking for, yes. The mayor is happy. The governor is happy, he said, about this pending deployment. The mayor is, anybody? Democrat. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's how Trump makes an enemy. The governor is Republican. And he said the city is, quote, deeply troubled and, quote, we're going to fix that just like we did Washington. As we've told you here, he's asked for the option to maintain a National Guard presence in Washington through the end of the year. Now, he can do that, even though it's being challenged in court. He can do that because of the district. It's a federal district of Columbia. He'll need, you need the governor to ask for the National Guard in the case of Tennessee, but he's sending troops. Who else is on the list? Chicago, Baltimore. He's claiming crime as an
Oakland,
issue.
San Francisco.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, and of course, when these National Guardsmen get there, they end up, hanging out, spreading mulch over various parks, picking up trash. I mean, there are less expensive ways to do this that also don't insult the service of many of these men and women who join the National Guard. They don't join the National Guard to spread mulch and pick up trash. And they're giving up time as mortgage brokers, as lawyers, as accountants. The National Guard's people
Teachers.
are teachers. Thank you. So this is such a misguided policy. But again, it's largely performative. It's theatrical. That's what Trump does in such a big way. That's a little bit on Charlie Kirk and some of the other things that are going on. I will repeat a bit of this in the segment ahead because we'll talk to Jim Avila and we'll talk to Michael Shure about these things as well. And I think in that conversation, we'll likely retill some of this soil, and I'll also try to integrate some of your comments along the way. A lot of people have been into our chat, and I want to get into some of that as well.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yes, thank you for being here. We are a live show on the East Coast 2 to 4, on the West Coast 11 to 1, and we appreciate everybody being here. I want to quickly get into some super chats, and then I'll get to Michael and to Jim. The hypocrisy of the last 2 days insults my intelligence, says Richard Delamater. Thank you for that. What is this? A $20 super chat from Angel in the Bay Area says, Mark, apologies for piling on about The Voice. 2x money today to say thank you for listening to The Voice to bring us the important and vital information. I apologize and promise to do better. I will tell you what this is about. Better. Thank you, Mark and Kim, Tony, and the commish. I always like it when people use Albert's nickname, the commish. He's the commissioner of sports on this show. This was about playing Donald Trump's comments and saying, I can't take it. I don't even want to hear his voice. And I was saying, guys, you got to get over that. I mean, he's the president of the United States, and what he's saying is super consequential. I don't want him to be the president of the United States, but he is. So we're going to play cuts that we feel are relevant to what's going on. And I think this is Angel in the Bay Area, who was one of those who made the comment, like, I don't want to hear from him anymore. It is from Tom Graves, too early for Kirk jokes? If so, sorry, Charlie. I see. Tom Graves, thank you. Chaplain Fred says, hi, Mark. I said it once and I will say it again. Trump now has the perfect excuse for his war with everyone that does not agree with him. Told you, Mark, civil war is coming. Well, these are chilling thoughts. And then again, I don't know what that looks like in this country, but I do believe that there are likely challenges to the kind of civil war that we're talking about. But if you're talking about it birthing a period of increased violence, I would agree with that. And that's one of the problems I have with political violence. It gets you just more political violence. Violence generally gets you more violence. Beth Farmer says they can't put those nasty worms, that should be, I guess, back in a can. Their hate is out there for all to see. Thank you for the $20 super chat. And yeah, I mean, there have been some hateful things said. We've played a bunch of them for you. I thought the stuff that Eric Trump said, that Don Jr. Said is, saying it on national television to an audience that's all too receptive to it. Harry Magnus says, yes, Don Jr. is traumatizing and a liar. Sorry, you can't sugarcoat this nonsense. Yeah. The comment from Luis, the $5 super chat. So a white dude shoots another white dude on a predominantly white campus in a mostly white state, resulting in threats against HBCUs? Makes sense, not. Yeah, this is, I hadn't heard it framed in that way, but that's exactly right. Wasn't there a shutdown or I don't know if I'm not a lockdown, wasn't there a special advisory that went out to the historically black colleges and universities. Isn't that right, Kim? I thought that happened yesterday, but I don't know if Kim's still there, or I can't. I've asked for people to keep those cameras on, but they don't. So
I'm here. You're
okay.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it yesterday.
Right.
They had bomb threats. They had warnings at HBCUs yesterday, and it continues today.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. The lady Beatrice says, I hear he wants to give Kirk a Presidential Medal of Freedom. He's going to do it. If hate speech is a reason for that, Harrison Butker should get one. He's the kicker for, isn't he, Commish, the kicker for the Chiefs?
Yes, that's correct.
It's tough for me to keep all the hate speech clear. You know, it's a very, very complicated hate speech scheme that I've got going. I've got to match all the hate speech with the person who said it. Harrison Butker is the kicker for the Chiefs.
I believe even last night at the football game, the Thursday night football game, they did hold a moment of silence at the Packers game in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So, moment of silence from the NFL and the Packers. So,
Lady Beatrice says, not really, but shows how inappropriate the idea is. Yeah, it is. I don't know. The Congressional Medal, rather the Presidential Medal of Freedom, has, in my judgment, been. I mean, you can argue this for a lot of different awards, but it's been completely degraded anyway. It's now you want to say if somebody got the Presidential Medal of Freedom, who'd you get under? Who's the president? I don't know. I mean, Rush Limbaugh was to me, low ebb, but there are probably other examples as well. Just looking really quickly, and then I will get to both Turning Point founders are dead. Anti-vaxxer Ed Montgomery died of COVID in 2020, and now Charlie Kirk, says Louise. Yeah, I hadn't put that together. Thank you, Louise, for that. Look, Turning Point USA is super relevant. I was telling you about this yesterday. We talked about it in some detail. If you missed it, it might be worth going back to yesterday's show, because I know some people, maybe even many here on this channel, weren't aware of the power of Charlie Kirk and the relevance of Charlie Kirk, and indeed the lift that Turning Point USA produced in getting Trump into the presidency this time round. And Charlie Kirk is a real political force through Turning Point USA that energized young, politically motivated people to become activated in ways that are super dangerous and super bad, but super relevant. And so Turning Point USA lives on. And again, the martyrdom around Charlie Kirk may be the very thing that reminds everyone that political violence is yet again, and for another reason, a bad thing, 100% bad. Zoe Rose says, this just goes to show how much infighting is within the Republican Party. Tyler is a registered Republican. Yeah. I mean, this, thank you, Zoe, that truly does underscore the fact that these narratives that came out, and Trump's narrative came out like 20 minutes after Kirk had been assassinated. He was talking about a lunatic leftist and all this sort of thing. These narratives are, they slap them on immediately, but they're not valid in any way. So, all right, smash the like button if you would. It helps us in the world of YouTube. Sorry to be so with something mundane as slapping the like button on, but you gotta smash your
iron rod.
Because if you do that, then that thumbs up helps us show up in other people's feeds who don't even know we're having this conversation. So smash it with your iron rod. We continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Really privileged to have two very, very smart, accomplished people join us every Friday. He's the former White House correspondent for ABC News, the senior correspondent there at ABC, and now he joins us every Friday to, I think, speak more openly about what's going on in America, probably than he could at the ABC network anyway. How about it for the great Jim Avila? And a man who has forgotten more about politics than most of us will ever know. He's the wonderful Michael Shure. Yeah. Hi, there are guys. Thank you for being here, as I always say, but truly on it's a dark week because you can see the increasing momentum of political violence in America. Jim, I wonder if you can give me a thought on what's going on.
Well, I don't believe in violence in any way. So, I think this was overboard. We should have just argued with the guy and continue to press our point. I don't believe in anything he had to say. And yes, he was, as you just mentioned, very important in the world of politics. Many people credit him with putting Trump over the top because he got younger votes that he didn't get before. On the other hand, what I don't know yet, and I'd like to hear Michael's thoughts and your thoughts on this, Mark, is I don't know yet, because I did not follow him very closely, is whether or not all these tributes about him wanting to listen and not react with violence and debate in a civil manner, if that's correct. If it's correct, I wholeheartedly endorse it. If it isn't, then I'd like to hear about that, because I don't know him as that. But that, now that he's been shot, everybody's come out, of course, and says that he was a good example of how to debate. And I don't know if that's true or not.
I'll turn over to Michael in a second. I'll just share what I know. He had a regular thing that he was doing, actually, I think doing it at the time that he was killed. And it was called Prove Me Wrong. And so he has people, they talk to them before they actually take the microphone. They have them, pre-selected, if you will, with questions, but they're legitimate, provocative questions. And then Kirk responds to them. The one thing I would say is when you watch them, it's oftentimes not quite the legitimate back and forth that you would hope for. There's a little, I feel, kind of a professional wrestling aspect to it, where Kirk will essentially be able to steamroll the questioner, but that might be a little unfair. I haven't seen all of these different meetings. Certainly going to these campuses and taking these sorts of questions is something that distinguished him from many other high-profile political figures. Michael, you might have actually seen some of this, because I know you're out there on campuses and have covered them through the years and these Charlie Kirk type events. Can you speak to this?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to 2 of his events. They weren't formally sort of ID'd as that, as a prove me wrong events. They were just Charlie Kirk talking to people. And yeah, there's a sort of a mic drop attitude that he would take, like, yeah, try and tell me that this isn't right. And then he's got his people boosting him up, and he does this kind of, he doesn't do that, but that's the kind of feel I get. I should also, just to correct the record, Tyler was not a registered Republican, according to what I've seen. One of your listeners said that earlier. I've seen that he's been registered as a nonpartisan voter, and he came from a Republican family, which is hard not to do in Utah, generally speaking. But just for clarity on that issue, I've only read today and learned from reporters reporting that he was a registered nonpartisan.
Albert, play for us, if you would, the kid who asked the question, and as he was asking the question, in response, Kirk was murdered. Here, sadly, of course, he's been folded into this whole narrative. I say sadly because, he really was there, it would appear, just to ask this question and to participate like everybody else who was there. Do you have that, Albert, here? He posted this on social media.
It's a tragedy, and it's hard to grapple with. And I'm part of a community that's struggling to grapple with it right now. And people have obviously pointed to the irony that the point that I was trying to make is how peaceful the left was right before he got shot. And that only makes sense if we stay peaceful. And as much as I disagree with Charlie Kirk, I'm on the record for how much I disagree with Charlie Kirk, but man, dude, he is still a human being. Have we forgotten that?
So, I mean, you could see how emotional he was. I'm struck by this moment because I don't know if it's a culmination or if it's the beginning of a period of what appears to be a political violence that's being animated in large measure.
It's not even the culmination. This is who we are, Mark. These are our politics. Our politics are politics of violence. They have been for a very long time. Our policing is. We had John Yoo writing torture memos in the Bush White House. the left is not the violent side. They are not the ones that are pushing for, for gun laws that allowed half the people at Utah Valley University to be having open carry. That's a misnomer. It didn't start with Charlie Kirk's death. Hopefully it will end. But Gabby Giffords was shot. It didn't end there. Kids are shot in schools, and that's not political necessarily. Those are usually the acts of madmen and young sort of radicalized people who get radicalized online. This is somebody who sowed a lot of hate, who otherized so many people, and now the right is trying to project onto the left everything that they have stood for on issues of violence. And it's going to work unless the left finds a way to get into it. There is not, I heard somebody saying the other night that David Axelrod was quoting Aeschylus on TV that night, and Republicans on TV were calling for revenge. Republicans in the well of the House were calling for revenge. You cannot bring poetry. This person, I think it was Corbin Trent, said you cannot bring poetry to a gunfight, and that's where we are. This is who we are. There's nothing sort of new about what happened to Charlie Kirk. It just happened to him, and it's a tragedy and it's awful. But his rhetoric was while he was alive was terrible, and the fact that we're now turning him into a martyr is disgusting. In a way, it's a terrible tragedy. It's awful for people to have seen that guy who we were just listening to, who asked him a question, who came to that event earnestly wanting to be a part of that. It's exciting when a national figure comes to your local campus in Orem, Utah. I'm certain, especially when there are a lot of like-minded people, at least in terms of conservatism. But this isn't new. This is who we are.
There have been, you mentioned I'll get to the white nationalism in a second, but you mentioned the well of the House, and I wanted to play, they were, right after this all went down, they were trying to get together a minute of silent prayer. And kind of to your point, in a way, the discourse couldn't even halt. The shouting back and forth couldn't even halt. The one-upsmanship associated with this couldn't stop for even 1 minute. Albert, play that stuff from the House, the Mike Johnson attempt to have a moment of prayer in the House chamber. Here you go.
The chair would ask that all members present in the chamber and those in the gallery please rise for a moment of prayer for Charlie Kirk and his family. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Colorado rise?
This is Lauren Boebert.
Let's wait a minute. The House will be in order. The House will be in order. The House will be in order.
I just think that's instructive because, this speaks to the political discourse, Jim. This, I think it appropriate that it ends of the House will be in order. This is, now the House admittedly is a place where there are a lot of cross currents, but, they can't even shut up for 60 seconds to do this moment of silence. I don't know that the moment of silence is appropriate anyway. You didn't do it for the Minnesota Democrat who was shot and killed in her home with her husband, et cetera. But nonetheless, they attempted it and they couldn't get it. They couldn't get it off the launch pad.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, the problem the Democrats have is they still play by the rules. And I don't want them to change that. I don't want them to stop playing by the rules. But because they do, it allows the Republicans a week's worth of grace to spew hate, and it's not challenged because Democrats don't want to say anything bad about Charlie Kirk because he was killed in plain view. And I think that's right. That's the right thing to do. But it sets them back because Republicans showed no restraint whatsoever. Trump, the day of, was blaming leftists, and he has no idea if it was leftists, and in fact, it may not have been, as Michael points out. So, you know, it puts. I don't know what to do about that. I mean, I don't want everybody to jump in and have it be a free for all. Should we play hardball? Yes, Gavin Newsom's playing hardball, but he's playing hardball in the court of public opinion. He's not advocating violence or revenge or those type of things.
Well, he had Charlie Kirk on his podcast. Gavin Newsom took a lot of heat for that.
They had a civil debate. You know, I wasn't pleased that he had him and Steve Bannon as his first two guests. I don't think that was great, but at least he is willing to listen and debate. The Republicans have gone beyond debate. They are just name calling and calling for revenge, and that's not right.
You know, Michael, you point to where we are. This is who we are. And I think that's a kind of instructive comment, because we're a society awash in guns and awash in more and more incendiary rhetoric. And just
Not
look
to
at
mention, we changed the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War. We have road rage videos that we could watch until, if we wanted to now, we could watch until 2027 on YouTube. We have police. We prevent crime through violence. I mean, we are a violent country, and any denial of that is absurd. And it's not coming. The majority of it is not, at least, coming from the left. It's this rhetoric on guns, the rhetoric on torture, the rhetoric on extreme policing. That's not coming from the left, but the right does a very good job on saying and projecting that the left is soft on crime, that the left, is doing things like this before they even do it. Right? What happens? The story starts and people start fading away. We know what news cycles are like, right? Once they catch the guy, we'll learn a little bit more about him later, but this story will fade away to some degree. And all the information that people got from people like Donald Trump and others saying this was some left-wing radical who was out there. It might be an anti-fascist, that there seem to have been anti-fascist messages, but I don't know when anti-fascist became radical in this country. And to that degree, that's what we're looking at here. So to me, it's status quo. And this time, sadly, the bullet hit, but it's no different than it was the day before Charlie Kirk was killed.
I mean, go ahead.
This is further evidence of what I was saying before, is that let's look at the extremes on both sides. Okay, let's take AOC. Let's take Bernie Sanders. Have you ever heard them call for violence? Have you heard them call for revenge? No, they don't do that. The Republicans on the other side do, and that is the problem. You can't. This is a one-sided fight. You can't believe that that they're equal. It's
But what
we
makes
should
us
not
want,
believe.
Jim,
It's not.
if I can add to what you're saying, Jim, that they control the message machine too, which is important, because what they can do is what I'm saying is project it onto the other side. We've all had things in interpersonal relationships and wherever we were, projecting something onto you that they are doing. We probably all have done it at some point in our lives. The Republican Party and Bloc, which is interesting because that's another political story today, and Bloc, the Republican Party, has been successful in projecting whatever they want onto the Democrats. They're soft on crime. Their number one issue is transgender. Everything that really isn't true. It's the Republicans who are worried about transgender, and so it's absolutely a successful potion that they've concocted for political power.
The days ahead will tell us more about this, but the alt-right movement, there are degrees of alt-rightness, and the Nick Fuenteses of the world, they also find themselves at odds with someone like Charlie Kirk. I mean, this goes back just a handful of years, but there's sort of the suggestion that the Charlie Kirks of the world versus the Nick Fuenteses of the world are on opposing sides because Charlie Kirk is almost too mainstream for somebody who's like Nick Fuentes. So again, this, not to get too much in the weeds, but I guess what I'm trying to say is there are gradations even on the alt-right, but all of them are a day's drive from, as what Jim says, the high-profile Democrats, who you might consider the lefties, those like AOC or Bernie Sanders. But Michael, you're so right. I mean, it feels like all the right-wing and Republican punches land, and Democrats are still finding a good way to message. And
because the Republicans have Fox News, and this morning, I think it was this morning, Trump appears on Fox News and repeats the same thing about the leftists. And they just let him go on unfiltered. And the Democrats don't have that voice anymore. CNN has gone more toward the middle, more toward the right than they ever have been before. And MSNBC just fired Matt Dowd for saying something that was true.
But also something that was like, it's so tepid as a remark, when it comes to violence. Here is Trump a little bit on his Fox and Friends appearance, talking about the right. You see him there. It was odd too. They arrested this guy at 10 o'clock last night, Utah time, and they held the announcement until Donald Trump could make the announcement on Fox News Channel this morning on their morning show.
And they didn't even catch him, right? I mean, the guy surrendered, right?
Exactly.
So
that was the point I was making in hour one. I mean, they're peacocking like it was some great investigative triumph.
Right.
If the dad doesn't call and the clergyman doesn't call, we don't have him.
Right.
But
does the
pivoting,
clergyman get the $10,000 or whatever the reward is, by the way?
That's a very good question.
It's a tithe.
That's something else we'll know in the
not
days
a
ahead.
reward. It's a tithe.
Yeah. Hey, let me just quickly segue, just while I have you guys, to the situation with the Trump announcement wanting National Guard troops to go to Memphis. Obviously Chicago's on the docket, and they are in Washington. Give me a thought on this. Is this stuff, it seems like a bigger reach, but he did do it in L.A., and so on some level, I'm thinking he can do it elsewhere. And at least in Tennessee, there's a Republican governor.
Yeah, it doesn't appear as though there's much objection to it in Tennessee,
Right.
from either the mayor or who I think the mayor is a Democrat, but I don't
Mayor's
think he's
a Democrat,
objecting.
right? Exactly.
He's not objecting, and certainly the Republican is not objecting. So I don't think they have as much of a problem with it there as they do in California or other places where the governor has to cooperate.
And meantime, to push through Donald Trump appointees and nominations, the Senate is doing something which is called the nuclear option, Michael. I wonder if you could explain it and how the Democrats flirted with it but stayed away from it, and how the Republicans are embracing it and look like they're going to go through with it.
Well, yeah, and so the thing about the I'll talk to that first, and then I've got to say one thing on Memphis. But that's what you get with majorities. That's why on election night, when you find out you have a 6-seat majority in the Senate, it's huge, because when you don't like the way things are going, you change the rules, and that's what the Senate is doing. And so if you woke up this morning worried that we didn't have an ambassador in Greece, well, you're going to have Kimberly Guilfoyle soon, so don't worry. These are the things they do. They say that they're trying to negotiate with the Democrats. In fact, they may be, but those negotiations didn't get anywhere on this. And when you have that kind of a majority, it means that you can go right into it, and you can and you can change the rules and then have your vote and get people out there. And so
explain what the rule change would be then, please.
Well, the rule change is that you can bring these nominees up what's called en bloc, which is all at once rather than a little at a time, or one at a time. And when you do that, it's hard then to get the objections, because you'd be objecting to everything. The rules of the Senate state that you have to be able to vote on these one by one. And when you do it en bloc, you vote on everyone at once. And it's a big advantage for the majority to be able to do that.
Now, did you want to say something about Memphis?
Yeah, well, there are some races going on in Memphis, in Tennessee, and it's an easy place. So when you see Trump doing this, what he's doing by not being on the ballot in 2026, actually on the ballot, is he's setting up the Republican Party, his party, to retain control because they are the ones that are tough on crime. So if you go into a state where there's a governor's race in Texas, Bill Lee's the governor, he's term limited out, Marsha Blackburn's going to be running, there's a chance that some prominent Democrats are going to run either for the Senate against Bill Hagerty, but more likely against Marsha Blackburn in the governor's seat. They're trying to make sure that they have the power and they're able to keep the power in these places by having their candidates say, hey, we're tough on crime. They're soft on crime. If crime is the number one issue, nobody knows if it will be, the Republicans are staking that ground out, and they have the advantage of both houses of Congress and the president to kind of do what he wants when it comes, as we've seen, when it comes to doing this. And they can also use the courts stepping in against Democrats, right? If they're unable to send troops somewhere because a court said it, hey, we wanted to do it, but the Democratic court said that we couldn't do it. I mean, this is the advantage of, they call it the bully pulpit, and this is the bully pulpit part of the job, is that you're able to do these sorts of things.
Crime is a winning issue, and it's been identified as such, as you've just said. But there was interesting, just because you're talking about the politics of the next election, warning sign for Republicans as Trump's approval collapses in a key county. They are looking at Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Michael, you've reported from there, I think, and probably you too.
Yeah, it's a swing county, and I mean, it's swung. It hadn't been a swing county, and Jim, I'm sure, has been there a number of times. It's pretty close to D.C. It's a part of. It's kind of. It's not a Philadelphia suburb, but it's a Philadelphia weekend spot, and it's a place that had swung from, being very blue to kind of purpling up a little bit. And if Trump is failing there, that doesn't bode well for a very big swing state at all. And those are the kinds of things that, may have seen Bob Casey lose his job and Kamala Harris lose the state in the 2024 election.
Yeah, they call it one of the nation's top bellwethers, and they say in new polling, it is Donald Trump approval rating that's in free fall. And again, that's the description. It's actually 53% among likely voters. That's a disapproval number of 53%. So I don't know if I'd call it free fall, but maybe that's sufficient.
Independents are losing their interest in Mr. Trump. And I think that is because of these crazy things he's been doing. And while it shores up his base, he continues to have that, I guess it's 45% now, of people who will follow him no matter what he does. But the independents are spooked by the crazy things that he does and the fact that he's taking on. Go ahead, Mike.
Sorry, no, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jim. To what Jim's saying, though, I'm bolstering what he's saying. To that end, the independents are the ones that are most interested in issues like crime. In many cases, that's a swing issue for a swing voter.
I guess I live in a bubble, Mark, because I don't live in LA anymore. And even when I did live in LA, the worst thing that there was a homeless encampment across the street from my too expensive apartment. But other than that, I didn't feel in danger at all. I walked my dog in the middle of the night. I did all those things. And here in San Diego, where I live now, I don't see any crime. So I really can't speak to the fear that you say is palpable. I'm not sure it's there among the majority of Americans. They're going to make it seem like it is, and they're going to terrorize people with that. But in reality, is crime the big issue, or is the fact that my meat costs $10 a pound going to be the reality? I still think it's the economy, and that's what it's going to be.
But if they tell you that, and this goes to what we've been saying all day, Jim, exactly what you just said is, if the Republicans are telling you that crime's an issue, there are enough voters that are going to say crime is an issue. It goes to the last interaction Charlie Kirk had, frankly. If we want to put a button on this thing, they were talking about, are there, how many mass shooters have been transgender, right? And he said too many or something like that. Charlie Kirk said too many. The point is, they're good at telling you there's a problem when the problem doesn't exist, because that scares voters, and that makes people think that there is a problem. That's what creates wedge issues, and crime isn't quite a wedge issue, but it's certainly something, like you said, Jim, that people are looking at and hearing and saying, oh, it must be bad all over the country. It's not bad in my neighborhood, but it must be bad out there, and these guys are the ones that are doing the most about it. It's a very...
And I think even in places like San Francisco, which had got such bad publicity for what was going on there, that's improved as well. From what I'm told.
Unless you're talking about their football team.
Well, yeah, that's because they don't have a good quarterback. But I keep telling Mark that
what? They don't. He's just quarterbacks. Yeah, he just heard. That's the problem.
Can we cut Jim's mic?
Yeah. Well, we're out of time. I was going to try to shoehorn.
Not that our Bears are doing any better, but
well,
they looked pretty good the other
night. If they could only play 3/4 of football, they would be doing well.
That's right. That'd be great.
I have to wrap up, gentlemen. Thank you very, very much. There's a lot. Look, there's a lot going on. Obviously, the lion's share of what we talked about was the Charlie Kirk stuff, but there is plenty to leave on the back burner for next week, and I look forward to that. Michael, thank you. Jim, thank you. I look forward to our next conversation and appreciate you being here.
Bye, guys.
Okay, see you guys. Michael Shure and Jim Avila, everyone. Yeah, I love it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I just see that we're, it's getting late. I want to talk to them more, but it's getting late. I've got no choice but to move along, I watched the Kirk video. He was asked about trans crime. Then the second question was how many mass shootings were there? He was asked about how many mass shootings were there with that were involved the trans community. And Kirk said, including gang shootings, and then the shot rang out. That's exactly right from CC Ryder. That's how it went down. Crime is running rampant, yes, at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I see what you did, Rick Maloche. Yeah, how about that? Yeah, thank you for the chat. Everybody jumping in. By the way, we read all your comments that are left after the fact, so many watch the show on delay. Most watch the show on delay. So feel free to chime in anytime. John Dowie. What about John Dowie? A big shout out. John Dowie with a $5 super chat. A super sticker.
Big shout out.
Yeah, big shout out. Exactly. I'll tell you one thing I was going to, while Michael Snyder gets settled, one thing I was going to mention to the two guys, Jim and Michael.
Mm-hmm.
The Foreign Service is a big part of, as you can imagine, American diplomacy, and a lot of what we do worldwide. And international relations, as you know, are strained at best in many places. They weren't strained formally. In past administrations, we've had good relations with countries like, I'll just use the ones that are close by, Canada, Mexico. Now we're on sort of a wild adversarial footing with at minimum, Canada, and it would appear Mexico as well. And you've got the European nations that are all, used to America taking a leadership role. Now America is pulling back, et cetera. So there's a union for American diplomats, okay? And the American diplomats get an advisory from their union. And it's the American Foreign Service Association, I believe. And the advisory says, in essence, be careful about any opinion you have that is against the White House narrative and any bad news you have associated with anything you've learned internationally in your dealings. Here is how it looked. Important reminder, dissent and providing professional opinions in uncharted territory. We are operating in uncharted territory, the memo says. The environment facing the Foreign Service today is unlike anything we've seen, and the AFSA's duty, that's the union's duty, the association's duty, is to equip members with the best possible guidance in this precarious moment. For context, AFSA has long defended the ability of the Foreign Service. But diplomats posted at embassies abroad are being called back from their assignments after providing less than positive analyses or unwelcome recommendations to leadership. Even if offered discreetly, any statement, verbal or written, can be politicized and used against you, is the message. That is the reality we face, the message says. The union's warning to its members marks the latest example of how federal civil servants at the State Department and across the government are facing growing pressure from Trump's White House to downplay information or views that do not strictly adhere to the president's partisan agenda. For decades, presidents have relied on experts in the federal government trying to stay ahead of looming natural disasters, economic downturns, risks to public safety, public health hazards, geopolitical shifts, credible terrorist threats. But an administration that ignores or muzzles the federal workforce runs the risk of flying blind, making decisions with incomplete or skewed information with potentially disastrous consequences.
So they're not able to do their jobs. These are people that use words for a living. They're diplomats. They speak. And now that their words are being hamstrung.
It's not even that their words are being hamstrung. What they do for a living is they ascertain and assess different threats and changing landscapes internationally. Diplomatically, I just mentioned from a health perspective, geopolitically, there's so many different subtleties and nuances here. And then, of course, they do craft them using the language to communicate what's happening. But John Dinkelman, who's a retired career diplomat, he's now president of this AFSA, that's the association that issued the memo. He says, what we're seeing in the diplomatic corps right now is fear. All presidents have valued loyalty, particularly among cabinet members and senior officials who work in jobs set aside for political appointees. But Trump and his team have pushed for political allegiance in an unprecedented way, demanding career civil servants jettison impartiality for a partisan stance, backing the administration's agenda. He says, I'm getting reports from literally all over the world of individuals who are reticent to offer up their well-trained and well-experienced opinions regarding the situation on the ground, the way in which foreign interlocutors, that's a ding word, will view our positions and even to propose, heaven forbid, an alternate course of action. You know, one that's against or different from the one that the Trump administration has laid down. He didn't say how many diplomats have been reassigned for offering candid assessments, you know, or exposing, to avoid exposing people for things they said. And retaliation. To avoid that, people are just shutting up.
Yeah.
And he doesn't say how many people that is, but he's talking about a climate. He's talking about a climate at the agency.
Make sure you pay the people just to keep their mouths shut when it's their job to offer assessment and opinion.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'll say this. In the greatest lie about all of this, here is Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, and no one has folded himself into a little carry-on luggage bag for Donald Trump like Marco Rubio has. It's absolutely disgusting. Marco Rubio said, values and candid insights from patriotic Americans who have chosen to serve their country is what the State Department is all about. Is that right? Yeah. In fact, this administration reorganized the entire State Department to ensure those on the front lines, the regional bureaus and the embassies, are in a position to impact policies. Well, you reorganize the entire State Department, that's true, if you mean coring out the entire State Department and installing loyalists. So there you have it. That the latest word from the union that represents the diplomatic corps. So bravo, and we continue.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Albert, what do we do? What do we do? I'm way behind. I don't know.
We're
do we wrap up
behind,
now? Can't we just wrap it all up now, Albert? Do we have to do anything more? My God.
We do owe our audience and our loyal, longtime listeners a segment. We have one story. I have it in the private chat that we could get to. One story for
you don't want to do the 3 stories? You want me to get all the hate mail from people who like Friday Fabulous Florida, and we're not going to do the 3 stories. I get what's happening now. This is my own palace revolt that I'm facing, Michael Snyder. Michael Snyder, the culture blaster, who will be in a few moments. What would you like us to do? Just the 1 story or the 3 stories, Michael?
Well, you know, Friday Fabulous Florida is important. I think if you do 1 story, but also have a big glass of delicious Florida orange juice, you could balance out things. I'm just trying to think of a way through this.
1, says Tammy. FFF, says Obi-Wan. Woman bites dog. I need some FFF, says Sea Dog.
Yeah, well, I think that's somebody predicted it correct there.
Somebody correctly predicted the one story. All right, we'll do the one story. Albert, I don't want this to happen again, where Kim goes on and on and on, and then we don't have any time. I mean,
Kim, how are you?
It's just an outrage. I mean, really, Kim, if you could just begin to organize your verbiage so you could streamline it a little bit, we wouldn't be in this spot.
I blame you.
I'm saying that
I'm like the diplomats. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut.
All right.
You know, they do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
I don't know. It's really, really disturbing. I'm running out of people to blame on this show. That's the most disturbing thing on this show.
Hey, I'm almost on.
All right. Albert, shall we do it?
Yes.
You just want to do the one story?
Yes, this woman, very brave woman.
You could have done 10 stories during this debate. I'm telling you.
Thank you.
How dare you? How dare you?
Listen to me. I don't want to hear you.
All right.
Somebody hit the Friday Fabulous Florida Open fast.
Go ahead, Albert.
It's time for Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
A look at the weirdest stories from our weirdest state.
And here you go. A 70-year-old woman bites a pit bull to save her dog during an attack in Orlando, Florida. And you know what, Michael? When you get to be 70, I hope you can step up and do that kind of thing. This is heroic. I want you to listen to this.
You got to be really hungry, though, Mark.
She was hungry for justice, and this poor dog that she was trying to save needed her, and she showed up, Michael. A 70-year-old Orlando woman says that she had to fight off a pit bull to save her dog during a sudden attack outside a grocery store.
Wow.
She was leaving the store when a pit bull bolted toward her 14-year-old dog, Sparky, latched onto him. It happened out of nowhere, she said. I did everything I could, she said. We ended up on the ground grappling, she said. Surveillance video shows that there she is. She weighs about 90 pounds. Is that right? Oh, my gosh. This is incredible.
Very delicate woman, yeah.
She is using her cane and her hands in an effort to pry the dog off, but that didn't work. She resorted to biting the pit bull on the back of its neck. I couldn't open his mouth, she said. So I bit him, she said. I had to, she said. I'm 91 pounds. I have no strength, she said. The tactic worked long enough for a man who they're still trying to identify to pull the pit bull away. He then walked off with the dog on a leash. It was his dog.
Oh, man.
Sparky is still shaken. Sparky, the 14-year-old dog, but survived the attack. She credits the senior dog with giving her strength and purpose. Really, she says, he's the reason some days I get up. You got to take care of your dog. Bravo to her. Wow. That is a brutal story, but at least it has a nice ending, a Hollywood ending. And that is Friday Fabulous Florida for today.
This has been Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
Y'all come back now, here.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well.
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
All right. We will.
Who's Mark Thompson?
The Mark Thompson Show.
You know what I like, Kim? I kind of like reducing Friday Fabulous Florida when we have to, like in an extreme scenario like this.
No, you're going to get a big pushback on that.
No, I like applying. I know. I didn't want to do just one. Albert said he wanted to do just one, and he runs the show.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
he's
I
smart.
mean, I'm just saying. What I was going to say, though, in a situation like this, maybe
Albert,
we
thank
should
you.
do the same thing with Michael's segment, just to do one movie and then send him on his way. How do you
You're
think?
always looking for someone to throw under the bus. There's no bus, Mark. Come on.
My God.
No.
All right. Settle down.
Sucker.
I know.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
Yeah, all right. My God. She took a bite out of crime, says Mark Elliott. Come on. That's our audience. My cat's name is Sparky, says William Lundgren. That's a great name. Yeah. I don't approve of effing with FFF. Who said that? Tammy. Tammy gives us a lot of FFF stories, but well, hopefully this is a one-off. So, without any further delay, although certainly we do enjoy delaying, particularly when we're dealing with Michael, who's doing the waiting. How about it for a man who knows all there is to know about movies, the subtitles, the Marvel universe, the DC universe, the streaming? It's Apple, it's Disney Plus, it's Hulu, it's Netflix, it's Amazon. Who can keep a track? I'll tell you who keeps track of this. The brilliant culture blaster. He comes and goes on a rainbow. How about it for Michael Snyder?
Hey, everybody. Hi, Mark. Hi, Kim. Hi, Albert. And hi, Remarkables. You know, we do try to uplift the spirits at the end of the week, and it's been a pretty dark week. Not only did we have the anniversary of 9/11, the day before that, the murder of Charlie Kirk, and he certainly didn't deserve that. Horrible to widow his wife and leave his kids without a father. And he certainly doesn't deserve a posthumous Presidential Medal of Freedom. I thought that honor was for people who made contributions to the arts or enacted humanitarian deeds that made the world a better place. I guess he was a more reasonable purveyor of hate speech than any other political operative or propagandist. The man may have been a racist, a misogynist, and a homophobe, but he was always polite about it. And so consequently, you know, he's being mourned, and we're sorry
I see what you're doing here.
He lost his life, but you know, let's be serious. Other people have fallen victim to political violence. It is never the answer. Opposing the other can only make matters worse. And I just want to say that without embracing civility and kindness and understanding and a commitment to genuine democracy, the American experiment will have failed. We're kind of at a tipping point, Mark.
Wow. Very eloquently put. And the people in the chat, as you shall see maybe later if you watch this segment and see the chat, they agree with you and applaud you. So
yeah, you know,
I'm excited, though, that you will distract us with some things that we can indulge in.
And I will. And the funny thing is, my favorite film of the week
It's some dark horror thing?
No, it addresses the crumbling of the American experiment in
wow.
a lot of ways. It's called The Long Walk. I mean, speaking of the country going down the toilet, The Long Walk is a movie about a dystopian America in the very, very near future. And it's as good a movie based on a Stephen King book or story that I've ever seen.
Wow.
And though its dystopian circumstances are speculative and kind of troubling, that's not really his frequent excursion into full-bore supernatural horror. You know, we usually expect that from him. This is more, you know, again, speculative fiction, and it deals with some real political and social issues that we're confronting. America is in terrible shape. And one of the ways the government has distracted people is to put a kind of competition that is covered in the media at the center of things. And what the competition is, young men are picked from various locations. They apply to be a part of the Long Walk. And what it is, as it says, a long walk. All these guys are out on a road. There's a specific route that they're taking, and they have to keep going at about 3.5 miles an hour. And if they drop out at any point, they're out. There are other little strictures, and there are armed guards that will take them out if they falter. And so the one survivor in all this gets a lot of money. It's very much like, you know, some of these games and competition shows on television, but it's taken to the nth degree. And I have to say, this was the first novel the guy ever wrote, The Long Walk. And he wrote it between 1966 and 67 when he was a freshman at the University of Maine. It was published later, I think in 1979 under a pseudonym, but it predates other dystopian novels like The Hunger Games and even the original Japanese book Battle Royale, which came out in 1999. And like The Hunger Games from the mid-2000s, it spawned a successful film adaptation. And it was about one of these dystopian competitions that kind of keep bread and circuses for a disadvantaged population. Well, the movie based on The Long Walk is a better film than any of the movies in the Hunger Games franchise, 4 of which, by the way, were directed by the very same guy who directed The Long Walk, Francis Lawrence.
Wow.
So maybe he learned things along the way, but the script, which is written by J.T. Molnar, is really good, and the actors are wonderful, led by Cooper Hoffman as Raymond, number 47 in the competition, a young man who's trying to find a better life for himself and his mom, played by Judy Greer. And this whole enterprise is overseen by a guy called the General, played in fierce and fearsome fashion by no less, I gotta love this, no less than one of our heroes from many, many years ago, Mark Hamill. That's right, Luke Skywalker is now a villain in this film. He's the General.
What?
This was really powerful and impactful. And again, considering the economic circumstances so many Americans are facing with the evisceration of social services and what have you, there is a creepy near future prescience or prescience?
Evisceration and prescience is.
God, it was really well done. And by the way, in case anyone does not know, Cooper Hoffman is the son of Philip Seymour Hoffman, the late Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Thank you.
And he has the acting gene. He is quite good. Nepo baby my ass. But there are also really good young actors, among them David Johnson, who plays a kid who kind of allies himself with Cooper Hoffman's Raymond character, and many, many others. Charlie Plummer's in this thing. It's good, and it is in theaters starting today, and I highly recommend The Long Walk.
He really does like it. What else do you have?
Well, full disclosure, I have seen each and every TV episode and film in the Downton Abbey franchise.
So has Courtney. You and Courtney together.
Created by screenwriter Julian Fellows, whose American equivalent, The Gilded Age, which I also love, is still going strong after 3 seasons on HBO. So, I was accordingly excited to see Downton Abbey, the grand finale. And it's all about ending this early 20th century period saga, which has covered decades in the lives of the aristocratic, terribly British Robert Crawley, played by Hugh Bonneville, and he's back. He was the Earl of Grantham. His wife, the American heiress, Lady Cora, played by Elizabeth McGovern, their extended family, and their loyal or occasionally sketchy servants, and finally, we get some decent and uplifting closure from their palatial countryside manor, Downton Abbey, to their townhouse amid the hustle and bustle of London in the early 1930s.
So they had to downsize, did they?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
That's the thing that they fall out of.
One of the things that's addressed in this movie.
Wow.
You get your usual familial squabbles, new financial struggles due to the stock market crash in 1929. You get conflict amid the servants. Are you stepping above your station? How dare you crawl on your belly like a snake, sir? You get romantic angst for Michelle Dockery's Lady Mary, heir to Downton. She's a woman. She's divorced. She's become a pariah in society because of the divorce. This becomes an issue. And there's even some guarded acceptance of different kinds of love upon a visit to Downton by the legendary musical theater composer and scribe Noel Coward and his entourage. So you have a real personage in this thing, and he becomes a plot pivot.
Oh.
Because, at least one of the servants was a closeted gay man. And
now, can I jump on to the grand finale without seeing the ramp up to the grand finale? Or that would be a mistake?
You probably can, but I have to just tell you, all of this goes down in the spirit of the departed Violet Crawley, played by the late Maggie Smith.
She was brilliant.
She was the Dowager Countess of Grantham. She lingers here and there at Downton Abbey. There's a giant portrait of her in the main hall, and there's the occasional, what would Lady Violet do?
Jeanette is asking, is Maggie Smith in it, or
the ghost of Maggie Smith? Come on.
Do they in flashback, or they just refer to it?
Well, yes. You see a few brief images of her, and you do have this giant portrait of Maggie Smith as Lady Violet in the, I guess, the Grand Hall of Downton. The granddaughters, Mary and Edith, are always talking about Lady Violet. I have to say that
she's passed away. Thank you
so much. This longtime viewer felt great joy at developments in the movie, such as scullery maid Daisy becoming the head cook at Downton and finding love in her marriage to butler in training Andy. It's like catching up with old friends played by these wonderful actors. Jim Carter is still here as the loyal longtime butler Carson. Joanne Froggatt, so good in the recent crime TV program, the one
with the police.
There are so many of them out there. But
the wonderful crime program that he's so wonderful in.
She's still here as Lady's Maid Anna. Brendan Coyle is her husband, the gentleman's gentleman John. Look, almost everyone of note gets a curtain call, including late additions to the ensemble. Like Cora has a frivolous brother, Harold, from America. He's played by Paul Giamatti.
Oh.
And
Paul Giamatti's in it?
Yeah. And Downton Abbey in all its incarnations is a soap opera. Yeah.
Yes, of course.
But that soap is of the high-end lavender fragranted variety.
I didn't. It was too soapy for me, but Courtney loved it, and most people loved it.
I've never minded using this soap, and this grand.
Do you think it would have been great to be one of the moneyed aristocracy? Let me ask Kim, because Kim, I think, always sort of dreams of of being a wealthy landowner.
Just because I wanted to win the $1 billion.
Yeah, but she doesn't get interested in a lottery unless it's at least how much?
At least $1 billion.
So do you think you would have enjoyed that? I mean, look at how you have to dress up and everybody's evaluating you, and you have to get married, and if you
Yeah, I don't like the lot of the lives of women in those days, but yeah, the dresses and the tiaras, I'm down. Bring me the
maybe.
crown.
I get, the whole thing, it just seems like dress up looks like a drag to me. But I'm looking at the t-shirt.
I refuse to wear a tiara. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. By the way, the show I was thinking of that Joanne Froggatt's on is Mobland. It's just a fantastic show.
Okay, good.
I just, I see so many movies and TV shows.
Could you spend a little bit more time on Downton Abbey?
I think you're the one that did a little excursion into Kim's opinion of the aristocracy.
You're right. All right.
It's in theaters.
My bad.
My bad. I'm sorry.
It'll be fun to stream. Okay, let's move on. I found the history of sound to be like a beautifully written and executed period drama about two music scholars in post-World War II America who fall in love during a time when that was not the sort of thing men did outside the closet.
Is this a true story?
There are historical
touchstones that are true.
Yes, indeed. Lionel and David are fresh out of college and decide to hike through rural areas to seek out and record traditional folk songs that would otherwise be lost to posterity. And on the road, they grow closer and closer, but away from their sociological and cultural quest, the expectations of society and their baggage of different backgrounds prove difficult to surmount. So the biggest strength of the history of sound.
I don't know what you just said. I know there were a lot of words there put together. Very sophisticated sounding.
Okay, but they are in the midst of this quest.
They're challenged by what?
They're through this musical quest.
Yes.
But society and their different backgrounds serve to keep them at odds.
I see.
Romantically. I mean, they have the attraction.
Nothing.
If you're not paying attention, that's fine. Mark.
I'm paying attention.
The
but
biggest strength of this movie, right,
Yes.
is the casting. Paul Mescal and Josh O'Connor, two actors at the top of their respective games, play the poverty-born, hard-on-his-sleeve Southerner Lionel, that's Mescal, and the more well-to-do cerebral Northerner David, that's O'Connor. Look, if this it feels a little chilly at times, and it might be due to the desolation and the grayness of the settings as they travel in the backwoods and such, and there's pain watching the repressed emotions of the leads. It's kind of tough to deal with, but there is pain to be mined here. A valid comparison would be to Brokeback Mountain.
Okay.
Although that movie's had that sweeping Western setting, and there was a willingness to have the emotions of the two men in love be more overt or theatrical, despite the taboos that burden both films' couples in these respective eras and circumstances. Still, director Oliver Hermanus, who co-wrote the screenplay with Ben Shattuck, has told a kind of a unique and tragic story with skill. And despite the downbeat nature of it, I was fascinated by the glimpse of backwoods song hunting, and I was kind of hypnotized by the sound of these earthy, rustic tunes that the guys collected. And again, Mezcal and O'Connor are as good as it gets in the central roles of two men who deserved happiness together, but they were like victimized by their time. The history of sound is in select theaters.
All right. Very good.
So let's move on. Strangely enough, this next film also focuses on a couple making field recordings, albeit in the 1980s, and a couple having relationship issues, albeit of another kind. It's called Rabbit Trap, and it is a spare folk horror movie set in the Welsh wilds, and it is graced by another pair of exceptional leads, Dev Patel of he was in The Green Knight. He was in Slumdog Millionaire. You know Dev Patel, very talented man. And Rosie McEwen. And there's a real find in a young actress named Jade Crude, who plays the movie's third and a crucial role. As good as they all are, and as kind of atmospheric as the terrain is, this tale of angst and dislocation below the seemingly placid surface of the married artists Darcy and Daphne Davenport, played by Patel and McEwen, becomes predictable as soon as this strange young boy, played by the androgynous Crute, shows up and tries to ingratiate himself with Darcy. And by the time Darcy comes upon a fairy circle, right, of mushrooms in the nearby woods, not too hard to see where Rabbit Trap might be headed. The cinematography isn't quite Discovery Channel level, but you know, you're out there in the Welsh countryside, or what stands in for the Welsh countryside. I think they're in Yorkshire, but it's visually memorable. And on the other hand, the sound design is really unsettling as these nature noises recorded by the Davenports become more and more unnatural sounding, and things do get heated, but ultimately Rabbit Trap is as, let's call it, as ephemeral as fairy dust.
Wow, ephemeral is a dang word, too.
At the moment, the directing of director and screenwriter Bryn Cheney is a little more developed than the screenwriting of screenwriter Bryn Cheney. Rabbit Trap is in select theaters. You know, it was
a bit disappointing, is what I'm getting.
Yeah. I was also a little disappointed that despite the powerhouse casting with The Man in My Basement. This is the work of author Walter Mosley, best known for his post-World War II mystery novels featuring the biracial LA detective Easy Rawlins. Mosley wrote the book, The Man in My Basement, and co-wrote the screenplay. And there are committed quality performances by Corey Hawkins, a young black man who has lost his way, who has left a house in the Sag Harbor, New York community, which is historically a longtime African-American enclave. And this house has been kind of a burden. He has no money. He's kind of shiftless. His friends say, you got to get a job. He can't hold on to work. There are issues in his recent past that are responsible for that. And this white guy shows up, played by Willem Dafoe, and he says, rent me your basement for 2 months and I will give you thousands of dollars. And so he agrees to do it. But what the Dafoe character does in the basement is not what anyone might expect.
Oh my God. And this is, you didn't like this.
I did like it to an extent, but I thought it was flawed. I have to say that the performances by Hawkins and Dafoe, and Anna Diop as a young woman who's sort of an expert in African-American folk art, they're all quite good. And there's a promising devil's bargain sort of thing here that's set into motion with racial subtext, and the historical resonance surrounding the community of Sag Harbor.
Who plays the lead?
A guy named Corey Hawkins. He plays Charles Blakey. There's an ancestral home and they're going to foreclose on it, and he needs the money, and this guy shows up.
I kind of like it. Well, yeah, it's not a horror movie.
No, but there is a supernatural vibe that suffuses a lot of it, and that doesn't really pay off. I'm not trying to spoil anything.
Suffuses is a big one.
There is quality here, and the performances are wonderful. I just feel that the script kind of meanders a little bit here and there, and there are moments of great drama that don't really, they didn't stick the landing. But The Man in My Basement is a quality movie on many, many levels. It's in select theaters, and it will be available for streaming on demand on September 25th. Let's quickly wrap things up. I've got to tell you about this. My sleeper of the week, and you're going to love this, is Code 3. It is a dark and often funny glimpse of a couple of paramedics and their trainee during a 24-hour shift on the streets of Los Angeles. Rainn Wilson is Randy. That's Rainn Wilson, right, from The Office. He played Dwight on The Office. He played Harry Mudd in Star Trek Discovery. He was the lead in the very funny superhero comedy Super. He plays this guy, Randy, a veteran EMT who has seen too many bodies over way more than a decade and kind of on the verge of burnout. And his co-star is Lil Rel Howery.
I love Lil Rel.
He's great here as Mike, who is a kind of laconic guy toughing out the gig behind the wheel of the ambulance until something better comes along. And then there's young trainee Jessica, played by Amy Carrero. She's an eager beaver and kind of at odds with these guys who are just struggling to get through the shifts, you know.
That's funny.
So this has a lighter touch than the similarly themed Bringing Out the Dead, and it gives Wilson a really strong lead role that he commandeers with what I'd have to say is wit and fire, and of course he's ably supported by Howery. There is one phenomenal rant by Wilson, whose character of Randy breaks the fourth wall now and then, that felt like he was channeling. Remember the furious anchorman Howard Beale, played by Peter Finch in Network, the 1976 satire about Patty Chayefsky? Like Beale, Randy is mad as hell at being overworked, underpaid, and underappreciated, and he isn't going to take it anymore. Code 3 was directed by Christopher Leone and co-written by Leone and Patrick Pianezza, and was purportedly inspired by Pianezza's experiences as an EMT.
Wow.
For all the laughs it generates, Code 3 does have a number of serious moments that feel emotionally true. Again, this is not a great film, but man, I enjoyed it. The only movie I thought was better to watch, other than the opulence of Downton Abbey, would probably be The Long Walk. Code 3 was a lot of fun. It's in select theaters. I think it's going to play well at home. It also features Rob Riggle as a nasty ER doc and the great Yvette Nicole Brown as a salty, sympathetic dispatcher at the ambulance company. I liked Code 3.
Wow, he really liked Code 3, everybody. I know another season of Only Murders in the Building is coming.
Yeah.
Did you see any of it?
I did. I've watched the first 3 episodes, and in season 5 seasons, Charles, played by Steve Martin, Oliver, played by Martin Short, and Mabel, played by Selena Gomez, have to contend with the death of the beloved doorman at their Upper West Side apartment building.
Oh, my goodness.
The Arconia, and its connections to the old school New York mob and the new version of the mob as embodied by 3 tech billionaires. And honestly, and the guest stars are Tay Leone and Bobby Cannavale as husband and wife in the mafia. And as the 3 tech billionaires, get ready, Christoph Waltz, Renee Zellweger, and Logan Lerman. And so far, this thing is really up to snuff. If you've watched and enjoyed Only Murders in the Building on Hulu, season 5 is available and will be rolling out more episodes after the first 3, which are now on Hulu for your delectation and highly recommended.
Only Murders in the Building. He likes it. And it's coming soon on a Hulu.
It's out there already, buddy.
Oh, it's coming to your Hulu whenever you click on it. It's there already. Code 3, about the paramedics with Rainn Wilson playing Randy, and the veteran EMT who's kind of had enough, seen it all, done it all. Lil Rel Howery, I think it is, last name.
It is, Howery.
Howery. And Amy Carrero. Michael Snyder, the Culture Blaster, really likes it. Says it's a really good ride, it's funny, and he recommends it. The Man in My Basement, the Walter Mosley inspired offering. He was the guy who wrote a bunch of stuff for these post-World War II mystery novels. Takes place in a Sag Harbor enclave made up of largely African Americans. Willem Dafoe, the white guy, shows up, and he may be the savior to their economic vice.
Yeah, man.
The thing that's squeezing them.
Charles needs money to hold on to the ancestral family home, and maybe this guy will help out.
Anna Diop and Corey Hawkins is the lead in that, and Michael liked it, although he felt they didn't quite stick the landing on it. Rabbit Trap, set in the Welsh countryside. Dev Patel, Rosie McEwen. It was okay.
It was
what I got from you.
Yeah, it was not great, but it was not terrible. Michael Snyder, the Mark Thompson Show.
The History of Sound with Lionel and David hiking through rural areas, recording folk songs. two actors at the top of their game, you said, kind of the sad realities is what I got.
Tragic love story.
Yes, tragic love story involving two gay men. But Michael said it's okay.
Yeah, it's for what it is. It's good. It's just,
It's just not Brokeback Mountain.
No, it doesn't have that kind of sweep.
Downton Abbey, the grand finale. The Julian Fellows offering wonderful actors. Michael liked it and said that if you're a Downton Abbey lover, you will love this. And finally, The Long Walk, the Stephen King book from the 60s, now hitting the screen, better than any of the Hunger Games offerings, and that's worth a particular mention here because this film is directed by director of the Hunger Games.
Francis Lawrence, who directed 4 of the Hunger Games films.
Wonderfully acted. Cooper Hoffman, the son of Philip Seymour Hoffman, Judy Greer, Mark Hamill plays the villain, and Michael liked it.
Oh, very much.
The Long Walk, it's called. Well,
yeah,
Michael,
I've been with Mark. There is no Short Pier. I just wanted you to know. There's just
the Long Walk. Short Pier might be the sequel. I'm grateful for your patience. Thank you for hanging out. You can read Michael's musings in thevoicesf.org. Thevoicesf.org.
And even though it's going to be remote because I'm in LA and going to art openings and what have you, like Gabba Gallery tomorrow night downtown, big opening, I will be watching Giants-Dodgers live from Oracle Park all weekend long. What a titanic matchup.
Yes, indeed. And your Niners?
Against the New Orleans Saints, I'm
it should be when they win, but they won't have
Brock. They may not have Brock. I know they're not going to.
They're not going to have Brock, and they're not going to have
Kittle.
Oh, so, good luck.
Thank you.
Comes and goes on a rainbow. Bye-bye, Michael.
So long, everybody. See you next week.
Yeah. What a spirited offering that was. I mean, it's hard to believe that we only have
the Mark Thompson Show.
We only have an hour of show still to go.
Wait, what?
Wait a minute. No, I'm only I'm working I'm offering off a dated rundown.
Oh.
Do I need to get to some comments quickly? I can just read them. What do I need to do? Yeah. The lady Beatrice says, how did this guy think his family wouldn't tip off the cops? Withholding knowledge of a crime is illegal. Brian Landry's parents broke the law without no, that's right. Brian Landry was without shame. That was the, but they ultimately, I think they were prosecuted for obstruction of justice there, Brian Landry. FYI, Reuters and Washington Post are reporting Trump officials to link child deaths to COVID shots. Thanks, RFK. Seriously, let's all move to Ibiza, says Luis. Yeah, I mean, you knew that these reports out of the newly reconstructed and reimagined HHS and CDC were going to be, I mean, it's all populated by anti-vaxxers. They've gotten rid of any, objective scientists. I mean, they're doing exactly what they decried the Biden administration was doing or past administrations were doing. You say that, you say it's a big pharma jihad. Well, now you're on an anti-big pharma jihad. And the idea is that you're denying all the science, any positive science. So
the information comes from that website, the FDA website, where you can go and talk about your symptoms or what happened to you when you had the vaccine. And there's no indication whether the two things are related. It's called an unverified report. And the reports are made on a government website. And so the presentation of this link now between the COVID shot and child deaths in this anti-vax movement is related to this database of unverified reports. And that will be an official government linkage from the FDA.
Yeah. Good times. I'll see you at the polio meeting. Richard Delamater, Mark, hear about the Senator Golbar Costas got 4 years. Maybe you can fill me in on that. Kim, I don't know what that refers to. So
I know that Mrs. Menendez went to jail, and that was the gold bar situation. I don't know about this one. This caught me off guard. I don't know.
Kimmy Smith says, when are they
When are they going to do when most of the forced what are they going to do when most of the forced births are brown babies?
Oh, thank you, Kimmy. Yeah, thank you, Kim.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, this idea somehow that you're defunding Planned Parenthood, which has been something that's been a priority for them for some time, and you'll end up in this spot. Yeah. West Theory says Charlie took advantage of the young, Charlie Kirk. They challenged him with questions. He manipulated the conversation to make them look wrong. Professional orator. He was gifted in oratory without question, and he was gifted in argument, indeed. Can we get the commish to discuss this weekend's NFL betting lines? No,
It's on KGO, 8:10 a.m. here in the Bay
Yeah,
Area.
exactly. We don't really do the betting lines on this show, so you're on your own on that. And believe me, you don't want advice from any of us. Yeah.
We have a bad relationship with sports betting.
Yeah. Giselle says, we don't give this much coverage when innocent babies are gunned down in schools. That's so true.
Right.
I mean, Fox News, Fox doesn't give, is what Giselle's saying. Yeah. The discussion is never centered around that kind of thing. They look the other way on that. Trump is trying to make political hay out of the Charlie Kirk assassination. It was one of their people trying to disguise themselves as a liberal when it was one of their own. And people can write fiction. People only write fiction on that page that Kim is talking about. That's what Ole Hansen is saying. Nobody can verify it. That's sort of what you were saying there, Kim.
Yeah.
And I think with that, we can wrap it up. I am grateful for everybody's input. Thank you for your forbearance through a lot of stuff that we had to get to and wanted to get to. And it's been dominated by the Charlie Kirk news, and it's also been dominated by the handling of it. And sadly, we had to pretty much orphan the Epstein file update. It looks as though I just mentioned here at the end, I think they voted down. That is to say, Republicans voted down the release of that huge file of Epstein information, even the dry cleaned version. So that legislation that would have essentially forced the release of it has been voted down. So there are other things that we will get to on Monday. Thanks for all the love and the support, everyone. Kim's over on the After Party Live channel.
Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for all your help.
Out of time. Bye.
I'll be on TYT today, actually, in just a couple hours. So maybe see you there. Until Monday. Bye-bye.